Hello, and welcome to Getting In, a College Coach Conversation. I am your host for this week, Shannon Vasconcelos, and it is now officially post Labor Day. So I know, depending on where you are in the country, some folks have been back in school for a while now, but I think post Labor Day, we can officially say that it is now back to school season. I think just about everybody's back. So I hope everyone out there is settling back into the school year well. We have a great show lined up for you today. In the back half of the show, my colleague and fellow Getting In host, Sally Ganga, will be joining me to answer listener submitted questions. So stay tuned to make sure you get your most pressing questions answered. First, though, we are going to talk to another colleague of mine and former Brandeis University admissions officer, Julia Jones. Welcome, Julia.
Hey, Shannon, how are you?
I'm great. Thank you. How are you?
I'm doing well, doing well. It's post Labor Day, so it's busy but good.
Exactly. And it's still wicked hot, as we say here in New England. It doesn't quite feel like fall yet, but we're going to try and get ourselves into the fall vibes. We're going to drink our pumpkin spice lattes, and we're going
Yeah.
to talk about college. So specifically, Julia, you and I are going to be talking today about honors programs and honors colleges, and I'm really excited about it. I think it's a great option for a lot of students, and I have to give full disclosure, I attended an honors college, so I might be a little biased in this space, but I'm going to try to not let my biases take over this conversation too much, Julia.
That's good.
But I would love for you to fill us in, Julia. First of all, let's start with the basics. What are honors programs and honors colleges? And I guess incorporated into that, is there a difference between the two? Sometimes you'll see a program advertised as an honors program or as an honors college. Is there a difference?
Yeah, great question. And and I think you should, be biased and positive towards honors colleges because they are great options for students. What they are is they're usually offered at special programs that are offered to certain students at usually larger public universities. So I look at it as kind of like a school within a school in some ways. They're usually, opportunities to kind of create a smaller setting, with some more opportunities for students to connect with professors, to have research opportunities, different things. But I think of them as kind of like perks for really strong students, and a way for students to kind of make especially a public university, but a larger school feel smaller, and give you things that you might ordinarily find more at a smaller school, or a smaller private school sometimes too. So I think the difference between honors programs and colleges is a little tricky because they can sometimes be used interchangeably. And, like so many things in college admissions, in the college world, it depends on the college in terms of what each one offers. I think in broad strokes, an honors college is generally kind of like a separate college within a bigger university, in the same way that you might have, at a bigger school, you might have a college of business and a college of engineering, and a college of arts and sciences. You also would have kind of an honors college, which has its own, separate buildings and residence halls, connected to it. So I think that's often the distinction, whereas an honors program might still have a lot of the same elements and things that they offer, but they may not necessarily be a separate school or college within the university. It may be across more disciplines in that way too. So I think that's the biggest difference. But I have seen them kind of be used pretty similarly in across the board.
Yep. Yeah. That makes total sense. So I think you touched on a little bit sort of some of the advantages of attending an honors college or participating in an honors program, but why should students consider it? Or are there particular students that this might be well suited for?
Sure. Yeah, I think that, in general, again, I always use the word cohort because I kind of feel like that's a really good word to describe, the community that becomes an honors college. It's sort of similar, kind of like-minded students who are, really, are looking for perhaps a more, intellectual environment to some extent, or just, and I think for colleges, it's a way to attract and enroll the best and the brightest, and by giving them, different opportunities opportunities. So, for many schools, there are opportunities to do research with professors, to maybe, or to have, more contact in a smaller classes often, comes along with that. Some schools will give preferential treatment when it comes to registration. So you get to be first in line to register for
Mhm.
courses, which at a bigger school can be a big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some schools do have, specific residence halls, sometimes, with sort of themes, or at least so you're living with people who are taking the same classes, who are in the same program. So that too can be beneficial. And of course, scholarship funds. There's often sometimes, scholarship money that comes with that too, which can also be, obviously a huge plus as well. So again, the different facets are going to depend on the college, but I feel like it's sort of a, school within a school, perks
Yeah.
and opportunities to really give you, much more hands-on, experience, and with other students who kind of share the same goals and interests.
Yep. That makes a lot of sense. And when I attended college, I was at the University of Massachusetts, for what it's worth, the Commonwealth Honors College at that particular university. And actually, when I attended, back when dinosaurs roamed the earth, it was going through sort of a transition from being simply an honors program to a residential honors college. That transition sort of happened while I was there. So that line is actually particularly blurred for me, because I would say my experience was probably, though I think I graduated from the honors college because they had made that transition, more of an honors program experience. They did not have the special honors dorms yet, which are fantastic for anyone looking at these programs. Look at the Commonwealth Honors College at UMass. I wish I could go back to school today and live in those amazing dorms, which did not
Yeah.
exist when I was there. But yeah, and I think for me, the biggest sort of tangible difference the honors program played in my life was the smaller class sizes for their honors classes, where I took some classes at UMass that were 200-person lecture halls, but all of the honors classes were capped. At that time, I think it was 15 students max. So you really got that more small school environment and the close interaction with the professors and the research opportunities. That was the biggest sort of perk on my end, in my experience.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think for many students, it can make, they may not necessarily be as interested in their public university because it's large, and if they're looking for a smaller class. So that makes a public university not only financially, much more attractive, but also, it's not only just using that as a financial safety choice, but it then becomes, wow, okay, I can get what I normally would get at a smaller private, liberal arts college, at UMass or at Arizona State, and pay in-state tuition and possibly even get a scholarship. So yeah, lots of really
Right.
great reasons why it can be an excellent idea for the right student.
Totally. And again, I'm biased, but I do think it is kind of like a best of both worlds experience, where
Yep.
you get the benefits of both, sort of maybe a small liberal arts college, along with the benefits of like a large research university, and you can get them both in one place. I think
Exactly.
it's really great. And I forget, you might have already mentioned this, scholarships. Do there tend to be scholarships involved with honors college attendance?
There can be, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, not every school does that, but
Yeah.
yes, I think for some schools that's another piece of it. It's, using scholarships in addition to the honors program as a way to, again, for colleges, it's about, attracting the students that they really want, and so scholarship along with an honors program and the perks that go along with it as well can really be, that sweet spot both for the colleges but also the students too. So yeah.
Totally. Yep,
Mhm.
absolutely. So we went over a lot of benefits. Are there any downsides you would identify with attending an honors college?
I mean, I think it's obviously not for every student. I think you have to really look at, okay, is this something that I want? For some students, they don't necessarily need or want the small classes. They want the big
Yeah.
courses in the big, in the big classroom size, you do have to maintain a certain GPA at most schools. So, and the work is hard. I mean, so I think that too, for some students, it might be, pressure that they're not necessarily, ready for or interested in.
Mhm.
So as with anything, it's got to be a fit. It's got to be a fit for each student in terms of, of the opportunities there. But, and you're still, it's not, if you decide not to do the honors program, obviously you can still do the main, university, but, at some schools, it can be harder if you want to major in something really specific that isn't covered. If it's an honors college, you might be able to double major, but it adds, there's more coursework. So again, it means, more coursework in 4 years where, so that can be, that can be an added push. So again, the right student, it can be a fabulous opportunity, but if it's not the right fit, then it's not the right fit. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. How do you actually apply to an honors college or to an honors program? Do you have to fill out a separate application, or is it different at every school? Another hashtag, it depends. I'm guessing might be your answer.
It
But
is.
why
It's
don't you
probably
tell
the
me?
single most common phrase I utter every day, is
Yeah.
it depends. I think that, in general, I think the majority of honors colleges or programs do have some kind of a separate application or something extra that you have to do, but not all. And I think Massachusetts, UMass is a good example of that. The Commonwealth College is a place where, they screen their applicants. You don't have to do anything extra. There's no extra essay. It's just, if you're qualified, if you're an applicant that they think would be a great fit, then you're offered that opportunity when you are offered admission. But I think most schools have some kind of something extra. It can be a full application. In most cases, I think it's usually some extra writing, some extra essays. Some of them can be quite lengthy too. I think about, Penn State's Schreier's Honors College, very prestigious, one of the better known ones in the country, but also their application is pretty intense. It's the same Penn State application. You use the common application and apply, but if you're applying to the Honors College, there's, I think, about 10 separate essays that you have to answer. Some are longer, some are short, and they're very intellectual. They're very, they really are looking for depth, and, they ask from everything from, books that have really inspired you to issues that you're, current issues that you're really thinking about. And so I think that I've seen students who've been curious and looked at those questions and said, okay, no, that's not for me. And some students look at those questions and are like, okay, let's go. This is, it's a lot of work, but if sometimes that can show you a little bit about what the expectations are. Some schools have earlier deadlines. So, if you are applying, you think maybe, okay, I'll apply regular decision, or maybe I'll just, apply when I'm ready. But some schools might require you to apply for like at the early action deadline or a specific, deadline. I think BU has a December 1st deadline for their honors program. So you have to, like, as always, you read the fine print, right? See what, as you're putting your list of colleges together and requirements and deadlines, you want to be looking at what else honors programs, what other requirements and what things you have to do if you're considering that as part of your process.
That makes sense. And I'll just piggyback onto that because I need to pull in my finance background wherever I can, and the little finance tips that we talked a little bit about how sometimes scholarships can go hand in hand with an offer of admission to an honors college or honors program. But that same policy that a number of schools have, where you have to apply by an earlier deadline to be considered for the honors program, you also may have to apply early to be considered for scholarships. That's certainly not everywhere. It's sort of a fairly common practice. So for students out there listening, if you're a strong student who think that you're in the market for some merit scholarships, or you're thinking an honors program or honors college may be right for you, you have to get on top of this stuff early and start doing your research, because you don't want to discover on December 2nd when you're applying to BU that you've missed their deadline by one day for the honors program. So definitely something to look out for.
Yeah.
How about I think you mentioned that honors programs or honors colleges are largely at large public universities for the most part. Is it at all large public universities, or are there, do if you're looking at the flagship public university in your state, is it definitely going to have an honors program or not necessarily? What schools have these programs?
Not necessarily. I mean, I think, again, and it's not just limited to larger publics. Like there are some smaller privates. I think Swarthmore was one that, as I was researching, has an honors program. So again, it's still, kind of giving you that extra level of challenge, although it's not as I think crucial for a school that, when you're already getting a lot of the benefits of, having small classes and connecting with professors. But yeah, not every public university is going to offer that. I think some of the big ones that I mentioned Penn State, Arizona State is kind of also one of the more well-known ones and really comprehensive, and they offer it. It's all of their campuses have, it's the Barrett Honors Program there. University of Pittsburgh is another one that has a really robust honors program that I've had students apply to. So I think it's a lot of the big name public universities, but not all. So you do have to research that. I think I always encourage students to do that as you're looking at schools and looking at requirements, and especially if you're considering it doesn't even have to be, you don't even have to be a resident, so it doesn't have to be your public institution. But if you are looking at, a university, even if you're from Massachusetts and you're looking at Arizona State, yeah, I mean, you might look at that and say, okay, well, Arizona State would be probably an easy admit for me, and so honors programs generally are going to be much, much more selective. That's, kind of probably goes without saying, but it is, as they're looking for the strongest applicants. So I think for many students, it's a great choice if you feel like, okay, you know what, I know that it would be easy to get into the main part of the university, but I want something that's going to give me a little bit more of a challenge. And some of them can be extraordinarily selective too. Penn State, the students that I have seen who are really strong candidates for Penn State's applicant honors program are applicants that are also competitive with some of the most selective colleges in the country. So, and again, for many students, it's an option because, again, financially, it can be a really great choice. So I think, as with always, you got to do your research. You got to, as you're looking at schools, my advice is, don't rule out a larger public university if you feel like that's not necessarily going to be a fit for you, because look a little further to see, hey, maybe there's an honors program or college that might make that school, feel a little bit more like what you're looking for and give you those opportunities. So I think it's another thing to consider that often, students or families aren't aware of.
Yeah. Definitely. And I was just thinking, and I have absolutely no idea if they still do this or if other schools do this, but I remember during my time at UMass, if you were not offered admission to the honors program when you applied to the university, you could actually come as quote unquote regular student, non-honors program student to the university. And if you did well, you could apply to be admitted to the honors program actually later on if you were a year into your enrollment and you were looking for, maybe some greater challenge and maybe some of the perks of being an honors program or an honors college student, that you could actually apply later. So that's a possibility as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. Not every school does that, but you're right. That's a part of, what you want to look at to see, okay, if I'm not selected right away, can I, sometimes the answer is yes, but in many cases the answer is no.
Yeah.
So, but at least, going ahead, what the possibilities are. Yeah.
Exactly. Always do your research. I think that's, we could apply that to any segment we could possibly be doing on this show.
Exactly.
The advice, do your research.
Hashtag do your research. There you go.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah.
And I think we're almost done, but if students have listened to this and say, "Ooh, I like the sound of this. This might be for me," and they start looking into honors colleges, what kinds of questions do you think that they should ask to make sure that they have done that research?
Sure. Yeah. I think, asking again what the parameters of the program are, what do they offer? And questions too, like what happens if I decide after maybe a year that it's not for me, that I don't want to do that? What happens? Can I just move into another major? How does all of that work? So I think that's a great question, because again, every school is going to handle that a little differently. Asking about, especially for schools that may have a separate honors college, are you able to maybe double major? Can you do a major in another school, or a minor? Are there, what restrictions are there? I think a good question to ask is also, what's the completion rate? How many, what is the graduation rate? Do students stick with the honors program? It's kind of like what you would be probably researching for a college in general, but this, that also can really help. What GPA do I have to maintain, so that, going forward, okay, what do I need to do in order to be able to stay? All of those things are great to have. Again, the more information you have in the beginning, that helps you make the most informed decision and decide, especially with all the work involved in the essay writing. You don't want to be doing all of that if it really ends up being not something that's going to be a good fit for you for one reason or another. So, research first, and then if you feel like, yeah, heck, I'm going to go for it, then give yourself the time that those essays and those applications are going to require, because they are pretty intense.
Yeah, especially that Penn State. They're
Yes.
nasty with those essay questions, but
Yeah.
I assume that is an effective way for them to get a good match in terms of just their applicant pool itself. If you're not prepared to do that kind of work and put that sort of, intellectual commitment into completing these difficult essay questions, you're probably not the right fit for their honors college.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think that sometimes that's why they do it, and that's a great way also for you. If those questions scare you, then maybe that's not the best place to put your energy. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Makes perfect sense. Well, thank you so much, Julia. Even having attended an honors college, I learned so much from you in this segment, and I'm sure that our listeners did too. So thank you so much for joining us today.
so much. Thanks for having me.
Oh, you're so welcome. And listeners, stick around, because in the next segment, we will be answering your questions.